What's your favorite food?
Yeah, I like good refried beans. I have a new refried beans recipe I want to try. What's up, Dal?
Oh my gosh, we've got Dal and St. FX in the same room.
Yeah,
Maybe.
Cool.
Tamara's in town. We just had a meeting.
Awesome. That's so great. Is that the first time you guys are meeting in person?
No, we met once before. Yeah.
Awesome. Great. Well, Tamara and Ariel, this is Sarah Jane.
Hi.
And Sarah Jane,
Hi.
Ariel and Tamara. Yeah. Oh, awesome. Great to see you. How are things in Halifax?
Hot.
Yep.
For the first time in a while.
It's great.
Awesome. Yeah, what's your favorite food there?
Yeah, refried beans. Put me on that list. Also, chicken, rice, and for simplicity's sake, I eat a lot of pasta. So you just throw whatever vegetables you have in there. It's nice and simple. I'm a simple guy.
Awesome. We were just chatting about our favorite foods as we were waiting on. Yeah. Hey, Emma, how's it going?
Good. How are you?
Good, thanks. I think I told Wes when we were speaking earlier, I was like, there are going to be no technology errors today. And knock on wood, we're going smoothly so far. So, awesome. So we've got so Megan from VIU isn't able to make it this week, nor is Neetha from UNBC. So Tiari should be on soon, and Cam. Great. Awesome. What meeting did you guys just come from, Ariel and Tamara?
Oh, sorry, what meeting? Oh,
Yeah.
We were talking a little bit about the Cisco meeting that Sammy and I have set up for next week after next. And we also talked a little bit about the Atlantic University Food Network.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. I saw it's Newfoundland, which is too bad, but I'm glad that it incorporates Newfoundland now. So, Sarah Jane, that's something that the schools of the Atlantic region have come together to sort of talk through some distribution issues and ways of collaboration.
Yeah, I think I replied to the poll about when to have the next meeting, and yeah, I'm pretty excited about it so that I can go, because I have two universities, to go back to both of them and be able to say, like, there's more than two, there's a bunch of us doing some of this work. So.
That's very exciting.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Great. Well, I guess we will wait maybe another 2 or 3 minutes. Thierry always has a bit of trouble hopping on.
In related social justice events in Halifax, it's really good to hear that the Just Us location unionized. There's 2 employees that were fired after trying to organize a union at Just Us, which is just kind of, we think that'd be a natural relationship, and then they just recently got reinstated and they formed a union at Just Us. It's really good to hear.
Yeah, I've been following that story a little bit. It's been pretty interesting.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a funny place to think about unions. Like, you don't usually see nowadays unions in the service industry like that, like, you know, barista union. But yeah, just as concern for that is, yeah, I'm glad it came through.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's kind of an interesting bit of corporate hypocrisy, though, when you think about how so much of their money is tied to their labor justice.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what I was thinking. Yeah.
Anyway, I'm just going to grab my water. I'll be right back.
Awesome. Hey, Cam.
What's up, Cam?
Hi, everybody. Sorry I'm late.
No worries. Awesome. So we've got, the only person we're waiting for is Tiari, but I think I sent her the link, so hopefully she'll be able to hop in when she gets on. But maybe I'll just go over logistics just to begin with, because Tiari actually knows about them. So our check-in next week is actually going to be on Monday. For those of you who are able to make it, it will be I think it is going to be at 3:30. So 12:30 BC time, 3:30 Eastern time, 4:30 Atlantic, and 5 o'clock for Emma and Ethan. And that call is going to be with Steve Golub, who is a really fantastic local food champion and chef, and he sort of tells the distributors who's boss and really believes in the student voice and farmer voice, and he's a real hoot. So he will be on to chat for about an hour. So if you guys have any specific chef questions, he's the perfect person to ask about that, dealing with suppliers, what's possible, and that sort of thing. So that's the Monday check-in. And is there anyone as of right now who thinks they'll be unable to make it? Thumbs up if you can make it. Awesome. Okay, great. And just a side note to let you guys know, one thing that we are applying for is we work with the University of Toronto's Public Good Initiative, which is their public policy stream that has done some great work for us on requests for proposals and research into that. And this year we're going to ask them to help us distill some policy around food safety regulations and trade perceived barriers to local food. So I can update you guys when that starts going, but if as you guys are talking to chefs and distributors and suppliers, if issues around food safety come up, or we were talking about insurance and meat and things like that, if that comes up, just any of those questions, please pass them along, because we'll be speaking to some people who can actually translate government policy, which is not my forte. So yeah. So today I just thought we'd have another sort of free-form meeting, as with last week, speaking a little bit about student engagement and some experience that we've all had with it, and our plans for the upcoming year, ideas that are stirring around, challenges that you see with bringing together student engagement and sharing resources and stories. As the main focus of this, sort of the main course of this check-in, but any other issues are welcome to come up. But I thought we'd start off in the same way that we did last week with the two questions: what's cooking on campus, and what's sort of the beef, the tough potato for the vegetarians, what's a big challenge. And also we will take the opportunity to introduce Sarah Jane. So maybe we'll start with you, Sarah. Sarah Jane, if you want to introduce yourself and if there's anything cooking so far, or if you just want to do an introduction.
Yeah, I can just do an introduction. I mean, I've only been doing this for 2 days, so not much is cooking. I'm just trying to figure out everything that the previous coordinators did and what I can do to kind of continue their work. So I'm actually a St. Thomas University student, and I represent St. Thomas University and the University of New Brunswick. And we sort of share campus space, but we are two separate universities. And so UNB has about 10,000 students, but St. Thomas has about 2,000. So we're pretty small. And yeah, most of the work that has previously been done for the campus food strategy group has been done at UNB, because that's where the two coordinators previously were from, and didn't have too much of a connection with St. Thomas. And I'm kind of in the opposite boat in that I have only actually lived in Fredericton for a year and have only been at St. Thomas for a year, so I don't really know much about UNB. So a lot of this has been learning about UNB and trying to catch up. on what's already been done and what UNB is like. Yeah, I thank you guys for all of the things that happened on the previous meetings that I just spent the last 2 days watching, because it was really interesting and answered a lot of the questions I had, and some questions I didn't know I should have. So it was awesome. So I feel like I know all of you and look forward to getting to meet and work with you guys more.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Sarah Jane. And I saw you've done amazing things with bicycles and dance, so there's lots of neat things to learn about along the way too.
Thanks.
Awesome. Okay, Cam, why don't we go to what's cooking on campus and what's the challenge brewing?
Cool. For Sarah Jane's benefit, I'm Cam from UNBC, different from UNB, but often confused. What's cooking right now? I've been having a lot of good follow-up meetings with our stakeholders, so getting a lot of different opinions and perspectives on how we can institutionalize the work that we're doing, what a committee structure might look like, how we can secure funding for a student to continue in a coordinator role, and what sort of big picture projects are on the radar. So things like a campus farm and long-term research projects, partnerships with local agricultural producers, other big picture stuff like that. Our RFP process is still going on, so we just got a second draft of that we have to review and attack, for lack of a better word, because I think that there are still a lot of parts of it that we aren't happy with, so we need to make sure that our committee chair knows that we are not willing to let certain things happen, but at the same time being tactful. And I guess that, I don't know, that might be my beef. It is a little bit difficult to make progress in this RFP process because I think our committee chair kind of has an idea in mind of what he wants this all look like, and it's a different angle to approach it from than the way that the student representatives and our faculty representatives are looking at it. So it's a little bit difficult to reach a compromise when we have such fundamentally different perspectives, I think. So ongoing challenge, but definitely going to work on it in the most strategic and effective manner possible over the next couple months.
Okay, thanks for the update. All right, Emma, why don't we move to you?
Sure. So what's cooking this week? I would say the biggest or most exciting thing was that we met the new chef on Tuesday, and we met with some of the rest of the Aramark team at MUN. So they just came in May, and this chef has only been here for a few weeks. And so I guess I'll combine the beef here. So far, the food service director has been like pretty slow at like connecting us to the distributor and just following through with other things that he said he would work with us on. But so we were kind of just worried about that. But when we met the chef, it was just really exciting because he's so keen on local and sustainable food, it turns out. So it seems like that will really balance things out. And he was really supportive of all of our ideas that we have already, and even had some of his own that he wants to work on too. And he's like, wasn't just, oh yeah, that sounds great. It's like, let's do that, and let's do this and this. So that was really exciting. And yeah, I just say a beef would be some slow responses from some people. We've got some ASR projects we're working on, and just still waiting to hear back from our main contact there. So, yeah.
Okay, thanks so much, Emma. All right, how about we go to Ariel? Dal.
Okay, I guess probably what's cooking right now, we're still doing quite a bit of preparation for our meeting with the Cisco rep in a couple weeks. We've been putting a lot of energy into making sure we know what we want to know before that meeting. So we've been in touch again with our food service provider and are trying to put together a list of questions for him that we want to sort out before we meet with the distributor. We've also been in touch with a graduate student from Mount St. Vincent University in Halifax who's doing kind of similar work to us, and so we're looking forward to maybe collaborating with her. She's been doing work with some of the hospitals in Halifax and has some insight into food service provider distributor relations there, so she's hopefully going to be able to give us some insight. Probably our biggest beef at the moment is that we were hoping to put together an event for Orientation Week at Dal that was going to focus on connecting students with the residents' food councils. And we've had a bit of difficulty getting responses from the residents' life managers, and the one that has gotten back to us doesn't think he'll be able to meet with us until August. So that complicates that plan a little bit, but apart from that, all is well.
Okay, it seems like the slow response time in the summer is always a challenge, especially with vacations coming up and people taking 2-week leaves and then the next person taking a week leave. So yeah, definitely something hopefully we can share ideas about after. All right, let's go to St. FX.
Sure. So what's cooking? There's a fair bit going on. A lot of it currently has to do with residence life and trying to establish programs for that, because I've had quite a few meetings set up with like people who work for Sodexo, and they all seem to have gotten canceled, and now everybody's off on vacation. And so that's kind of my beef right now. It is just the fact that I have a ton of questions and feel like I should be getting further than I actually am because they're away. But I'm currently trying to get in contact and set up a program to do in residence between like Emilda, who works for student engagement with Sodexo, nutrition students, and people from the wellness center to kind of get together and do almost like a panel discussion in residences about healthy eating and talking about like the benefits of eating local, but also like what's having a Sodexo, somebody from Sodexo there to say, okay, well, if we're doing this in residence, you guys are all first years, you're probably going to be eating in meal hall for at least a year, if not 2. Like, what do we have in meal hall that is local, but also like how can you learn to make healthy meals out of what we offer? Type of thing. And so try to like address the topic of food from like several different directions to try to get the most amount of people like involved. And if you can come up with like a program that you can just hand over to the RAs, the likelihood that it'll get actually done and proposed is like really high. So I've kind of been working a lot on that this past week.
Perfect, and very timely for this discussion. You'll probably have some really great insights into that student engagement piece and some opportunities and challenges. Great. All right. Carlton, please.
What's up? Yeah, so a lot of action happening on Carlton on all different fronts, and meeting lots of people. The network continues to grow. A main thing that is cooking on campus is I scheduled a meeting with our Vice President of Student Services, who also oversees dining services. It was easy enough to set up the meeting because I messaged him appropriately to his secretary. She set it up, and that was really simple. But we had a problem before messaging him directly. And so we agreed on that meeting, and then I got some really good news this week where he decided to invite his friend, the district manager of Aramark, to the meeting as well. So I think that this meeting has a lot of potential to be very productive, and maybe even have some deliverables. And getting to agree to things is not usually simple, as we all know. But I think in this particular meeting, if I ask the right questions and frame the meeting in the right way, we could really get some, move toward commitment. So my tough potato is volunteer, keeping volunteers engaged, because as I said, the network continues to grow. Lots of people interested in getting involved, and it's just about getting to a consensus or creating a direction that all these volunteers are able to follow is a constant challenge, and that's what we'll talk about today. So I look forward to anybody's advice or wisdom today. Another tough potato that I'm dealing with is the survey analysis, which is just a really intriguing part of our project at Carleton. And we were going to use it as the basis for discussions with Aramark about students. You know, they would throw around student demand. Certain administrators did this as well, as if they just kind of knew it off the top of their head. So we have a bit more of a empirical approach to talking about student demand, and then that provides this for conversation. So it's my first time using statistical analysis software in this in-depth, and like where I really want to know everything that the information is able to tell me. So I'm a bit overwhelmed with the abilities of the statistical analysis software and how to actually get out all the important information that was gathered by the survey. So still kind of on a learning curve about how to capture the trends that we're looking for, and also, you know, like price sensitivity is a dominant thing. We were expecting to find that. Some things are more obvious than others, but working on that. Thanks.
Awesome. Okay, thanks everyone for sharing. Does anyone have any immediate responses or things that they'd like to launch into right away? If you're good to move on, just thumbs up. Awesome. I guess from our side as well, what's cooking is we have a national meeting with Aramark later this month, which will be really exciting, going to headquarters there and speaking to their team about what's going on all of the campuses, as well as just received a grant to launch a pilot project for ASR at 4 schools in Ontario. So yeah, we're growing, which is really cool. And yeah, I don't even think we have any beef. Just trying to find hours in the day for all the exciting projects. So, so I thought today, just because I know there's so many different pieces to be working on, and you guys are all doing an amazing job working on campus, especially when there aren't many students around. And I just wanted to talk a little bit about student engagement for the projects that you are planning, or if none had come to mind quite yet, just to spark some ideas. So just student engagement can mean lots of different things, sort of participation in either academic or non-academic activities that can kind of lead students to develop a sense of belonging on campus, to form friendships and relationships, to help them determine values, really help them feel a sense of place and direction on campus. And so that's a really integral part of many universities' mandates, is for students to feel engaged. It helps with retention, it helps with attracting students, and overall is just creates a sense of community. So food is obviously a really great gathering place and meeting point, and so there's lots of exciting student engagement pieces that can happen around food. So I wanted to kind of just talk through a couple different streams that this can happen, and as well sort of just underlie the fact that a lot of these student engagement pieces don't have to happen sort of only through the campus food strategy group setting things up. It can really happen in collaboration with other groups on campus. I was really excited by Dal's comment last week about working with the Italian Society and the Loaded Ladle. I thought that was a really great synergy, and I've already passed it on. But just see where, you know, there's potential for working together. But so the couple of things that came to mind with student engagement from my perspective, and then I want to open it up, were there many different levels. So there's sort of the sparking interest aspect of student engagement. So these are engaging students who might not have been involved otherwise, for catching them and really, you know, igniting that excitement within themselves. So this can happen sort of through applied student research, last year, Leslie and Chris from Carleton helped facilitate 18 students in a geography fourth-year class, and I went in the second last day and asked everyone who had studied food studies before to put up their hand, and there was only one person in the entire class who had ever focused on food, and they were all so excited because of that class. So I thought that was a really neat piece to, be able to, that will stay with them for the rest of their lives, and really got them engaged in the Ottawa food system and then just understanding global food systems. So that's one piece with the applied student research. Another thing is sort of the broad engagement events in maybe places that they might not have expected. So, for example, using the cafeteria as a living laboratory, having, I think we've got, hey Ethan.
How are you?
Good, how are you?
Good.
Good. We're just talking over some ideas around student engagement.
Oh, great.
So, yeah, I'm just on a long-winded spiel, and if anyone wants to stop, you can just put your hand up. But if we're good to continue.
Good.
Okay. Right, so applied student research is one focus. Local food days, or using the cafeteria as a living laboratory, bringing in producers, having cooking classes, sort of things that happen around food, but to bring a different lens to them. So getting students involved and invested. And my personal experience was with local food days. I was in charge of them for 2 years as part of my role with the McGill Food Systems Project, and it was really exciting to sort of make connections and to have students talk about food, and we would do everything from quizzes to taste tests to bringing in local producers. We had like a sugar shack on campus with the maple syrup harvesters, and it was really amazing, but definitely a challenge there was when speaking to 400 students in a day was really capturing those students to stay connected. And maybe we sparked interest, but we weren't sure how to sustain that engagement. So that was sort of a challenge for me. Another sort of wider scale event is to bring it to campus, in the Students' Union, in an auditorium, in somewhere outside that's outside of sort of the cafeteria or dining hall experience or residence experience. And that this could be everything from a farmer's market. So UNBC has a farmer's market where there's a focus on celebration, and there's lots of different ideas. I've seen farmer's markets on campus with yoga or Zumba or the student band, or getting people out and celebrating and connecting. And then there's Top Chef events, again UNBC, events that happen through student gardens, the chefs on campus, really and excited and engage with the students. There's TRA is planning her vendor fair, which is really exciting. And what's coming along with that, which I think we've mentioned before, but I think is really exciting, is getting some sort of label or sticker like the Quebec student tuition fee red square. Does everyone know about the red square? It's sort of a symbol talking about social justice and favoring education, but having something maybe like an orange carrot made that talks about I care about local food, and all the students wearing those would have had an interaction which had them talk about why is local food important, or that they support local food, to sort of have students self-identify. And the last sort of broad scale engagement opportunity are sort of field trips, so getting students out to farms, getting them working in the community garden to spark their interest. So we've had sort of the academic and then the on-campus sparking interest. And the last sort of engagement realm that came to mind was harnessing interest. So the students who are already excited, or the students when you want sort of a deeper connection more than this, celebration, which is so great, but to really get a celebration with a lot of thinking and strategy and planning. We've seen campuses have speakers in and have discussions afterwards. We've had consultations on the National Student Food Charter, which is a tool that was developed by 400 consultations across the country, 400 students across the country through a series of consultations, and was sort of fine-tuned last year, and some of the CFSG coordinators were involved in that process. And then last year, UNB and STU hosted a Thought Luck, which I thought was a neat idea for people to bring. It was a potluck, but also to bring their thoughts and to really talk through some ideas. So those are sort of a lot of information, and I've written up and pass out, but some of the general areas for student engagement. And there's so much that can be done, and there's so many resources, but just to sort of spark interest. So what I thought we could do now was have everyone just take a moment to think through an event, either an event or a moment that you've had on campus that has really sparked an interest or given you that sort of sense of community. It could be with food, and it could be with friends, or it could be something totally different that you've been a part of on campus that's really exciting for you. So if someone, take a moment to think about it, but whenever someone's ready, just... All right, Wesley, go for it.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I could be a bit more creative because these experiences happen, but I could just talk specifically about the ASR project that I was involved with Dana, and with this project specifically, and the mapping stakeholder relationships on my campus. It was integrated into the course. I found it personally really interesting on a political level, and then making the community connections. And the more I learned about it, I just actually took a serious interest in politics surrounding food specifically. And then here I am, right? So that was an experience for me, and I hope to create similar experiences for other people.
Awesome. Great. Ethan, are you up or?
Oh, I wasn't, but I can. I guess the moment for me really was not so much around food security, well, kind of in a way around food security, but just around social justice as a whole. But last year, I first started to get involved with Oxfam, and I guess I sort of wasn't familiar with everything all at once, and we had a big event in the fall, which was kind of multiple events, all around Grow Week is what it was called, and it just brought everyone together in kind of a large sense of community, and great feeling, and that's kind of opened my eyes to I guess food security as well, but many social justice and social injustices.
Awesome. What sort of events were they?
We roped off areas around campus with really makeshift barriers, and we dressed up in our Oxfam veggie costumes and told people about land grabs, and that was really fun, and biofuels. Yeah.
Cool. I forgot to mention the importance of costumes. They are critical in a lot of them. We had a big fish costume for our talking about sustainable seafood, so that's great to know.
I'll segue into UNBC. We also have a carrot and a cupcake costume to promote our university farmers market, and those are always great ways to grab people's attention. And I like to wander around the hallways eating a cupcake or carrot cake for the irony's sake. Anyways, I'll speak about some engagement that we've done around the Dome Greenhouse project that we're doing on campus here. It's a project I started a couple years ago, and hopefully we are nearing construction of the Dome Greenhouse. And we've been trying different methods of getting students involved for a long time. And so what we did was establish a working group within the environmental club so that there were students that were interested in participating in the project. What's been difficult is finding things that students can participate in that feels meaningful to them and contributes to the project, because there's a lot of bureaucracy to wade through right now. There's a lot of emails and meetings and presentations and policies to work with, and different application processes. And that's not necessarily the things that students find very interesting and really want to get involved in. Once we actually have the dome greenhouse up and running, if we can tell students, hey, come volunteer for a couple hours, do some watering, do some weeding, you'll go home with a head of lettuce. That's the kind of opportunity that I think would get people very engaged, and then that gives you an opportunity to talk to them about other ways they can be involved. But it has been a little bit difficult to bring students into a room and say, okay, we need to create a job description for our greenhouse administrator. So we did have a couple sessions where we were brainstorming and trying to put together different themes and responsibilities and stuff like that for this new position. And sometimes it's difficult, and sometimes it almost feels like you're not accomplishing anything because you could have done it yourself in half the time that it took the group to agree on something. But I think part of the point of getting people engaged is giving them the opportunity to be a part of that process. So even if it takes a little bit longer, even if you have to facilitate the entire process and take that time out of your day, you're giving those students an opportunity to get involved, and then nurturing them, fostering their involvement so that they're more interested in getting involved at a higher level in the future. And it has worked out. You can really harness the energy of those students, and I'm happy to say that we just hired a greenhouse administrator yesterday, so I was just getting her up to speed on the project, and now she's working with funding from Canada Summer Jobs, same as all of us, and well, most of us, and she'll be working on the project over the summer, and she hasn't really been involved in things before, so I'll put in a plug for money, because if you can offer a paid position, you are going to get way more people interested than if you say, hey, we need lots of volunteers. And I just had a meeting with our VP of External Affairs today, and he said the same thing. If you can put money on the table, and you can put lots of money on the table, then you're going to get lots of good applicants. You're going to get people interested in it. So I hate to bring it back to the root of all evil, but I think that money goes a long way when you're trying to get people interested and committed to something. If you can offer a paid position, that is one great way to get people committed to something.
All right. Thanks so much. And you were sort of key in facilitating those meetings coming up to this, like the job description, and is the core group, has it continued? Oh no.
Not really, no. Stop doing that. Okay,
sorry.
I'm unmuted. We haven't been meeting as regularly, and that has been partially my fault, partially the fault of some of the other people that are involved in the project. It's been difficult over the summer. We've been sending out updates irregularly because we have a list of 50 students or so that have expressed interest in the project. It's just a matter of finding a way that they can be involved. And during the school year, we were pretty good about giving people opportunities to be involved and giving them regular updates. Over the summer, not so much. Lots of them aren't even checking their email anyways. But that's something that we should be a bit more diligent about. But again, it's something that we can have our new greenhouse administrator do, because now they are paid to take on those responsibilities. So hopefully looking forward to some more student engagement through them in the future.
Awesome. Thanks so much. Does anyone else have a thought about an engagement activity that was pretty meaningful to them? Yeah, go for it, Ariel.
This wasn't, it wasn't so much an activity, but I just remember last year at King's, there was a lot of stuff going on where the student union was trying to start up a student-run food service provider, like a little canteen on campus, and they ran into a lot of difficulties working with the administration to get that project underway, and the adversity that was created through that experience, though obviously not ideal, was a really galvanizing force for the students at King's, and I think it really helped with the buy-in to the whole project and made students feel that they had a real sense of ownership for this endeavor on campus. And I know that there's certainly a lot of sort of King's pride now that's associated with buying stuff from the student-run canteen on campus, and I think a lot of people who weren't involved in food issues or food activism beforehand have become involved through that.
Yeah. Go for it.
Yeah, I would agree. You can definitely get students involved when you start talking about food with a big group of them. When we had the annual general meeting for our student society last year, I was on the student society at the time, and I gave an update on the food contract RFP process, and all of a sudden everybody was paying attention, because as soon as you say like, oh, things might change in the cafeteria, everybody's like, wait a second, I eat food, this affects me. So when you have everybody's attention and you mention something about food, you can get people interested. And then it's a matter of following up with the people that were really interested and saying, yeah, we need your opinion. You know, would you like to be a representative on this committee, or would you like to have a meeting next week and we can talk about this in more detail?
Go for it, Wes.
I was just wondering, in terms of a venue in which you talk about these things, advice from, like Cam specifically said about talking to groups of people, like in which venues you do that, and I would also welcome your advice, Ariel. Can
you repeat that, Wes?
Yeah, no problem. So, in what types of settings would you speak to these groups of people, right? Like, how do these groups initially form, and then in what kind of setting do you talk about these issues, that what's going to happen to the cafeteria?
Yeah, so the first one that I mentioned was the annual general meeting for our student society. So we had about 100 people in the room, which is quorum for the meeting. So that was pretty much a perfect opportunity. There have been other times we've done engagement at the cafeteria, just setting up a table with a sign that says, have your say about food at UNBC here, and have some representatives sitting there. If there are other big gatherings going on campus, and you can talk to the organizers and ask if you can steal a couple minutes at the beginning, then you can kind of piggyback on the work that they've put in to advertise something that might be somewhat related. Yeah, if it's like a presentation or a lecture, a film screening or something like that, it's really good to try and sneak in there.
One quick comment, just to bring the voice of University of Manitoba in here. They actually got the student during elections and campaigns. A few of their students knew about the Campus Food Strategy Group and actually got on board with supporting the Campus Food Strategy Group as part of their platform, which I thought was a really interesting. I was at MUN during the time of the student elections and saw how many students were gathered around to listen to, you know, these leaders on campus speak about what they like to do, and I thought it was really interesting to see how the Campus Food Strategy Group could really be an ally to support, because I think food is often one of the major platforms as, you know, nourishing the population. So. Or Sarah Jane, do you guys have, or Emma?
I had a question if anyone had any sort of advice, because I don't go to UNB, which is the bigger campus, and have pretty much no involvement with UNB, sort of strategies for getting involved with those groups. So like, I know our student union with the coordinators last year was sort of said that they were really interested, but didn't really respond. We went through an RFP process with both schools last year, and the student union just kind of forgot to keep inviting the Campus Food Strategy Group to talk about these things. And so if anybody had any ideas about ways to really get involved, especially without necessarily me having, because I don't go to the university, I can't actually even join any of their clubs. So ways to get sort of, in whether it's like specific talking points or ideas that can kind of like solidify the group on campus.
Awesome. Okay, I see we've got Emma and Ariel and Wes, so why don't we go in that order?
Sure. Yeah, so I would say just in terms of trying to connect with other student groups there and students, like think about what groups will obviously have the most kind of connection to the same issues, or like even if it's not exactly the same thing, but just you can even think a lot of like social justice groups will be talking about food as one aspect of it. of their work, maybe not the entire thing. And then from there, I mean, I think if you just reach out to them and tell them what you're up to, and just have a conversation and see how they can help you out, I think that would probably go all right. And they can just kind of, they could probably offer you some opportunities to reach out to students, like if they're going to be doing student engagement work anyway. So like if there's an opportunity where you could join them and then, you know, be there and tell students about your work as well, I think that could be an opportunity there. And then just to like see if you can partner with them on student engagement initiatives as well, I think.
Yeah, sort of work with the smaller, like start smaller, because I know our student union is kind of, yeah, maybe work with smaller groups.
Yeah, or even like student groups who are like still student groups, but who are like bigger and have big networks. Like they could be a lot easier to work with than a students union, because they're not tied down with, say, all the other jobs that a student union executive is, maybe. So, yeah.
Great one. Ariel?
Yeah, I would definitely second what Emma had to say. We've had Sammy and I are kind of in a similar boat, just because we're both King's students, which is like a very small school attached to Dalhousie, and so we're kind of outsiders in this work as well. And we've had a lot of success working with the leaders of student groups that are involved in food. So I think that's a really good avenue to go down, and they can possibly give you more legitimacy when approaching the student union later on. Also, if you wanted to maybe track down a couple of professors who do research related to food issues, they might be able to send you in the direction of students that they know of that are really engaged already.
Oh, yeah. That's awesome.
We've made a couple connections that way.
Yeah, I never think of professors who actually, you know, connect with students and that professors would know. That's awesome.
Wes, did you want to add on there?
I would just reiterate, definitely planting seeds in other student leaders, and then like letting go in their societies, their groups. That's definitely something that works. Although I'm kind of skeptical about conventional advertising, because you're just bombarded with marketing all day long. Posters couldn't really hurt if you put some in some key heavy traffic locations saying you care about food, and just advertising the movement in practical ways at UNB. And then also making a solid effort to make sure that the UNB interested students are invited to all the STU events, and that way we're making sure that those students get over there. You can help create the buzz on UNB campus.
Awesome.
Can I ask if any of you guys have experience or I know most campuses have like a clubs night or an open welcome day. Have any of you thought through that as a useful forum to connect with students but also other groups?
No. Go ahead.
Tamara, Cam, then Emma?
Yeah, I know that at, say, the VEX, like, at the beginning of every semester, we have what we call, like, a society night, where all the societies get together in what we call the McKay room and set up booths and everything there, and basically students can walk around and see what societies are on campus and what they can get involved in. So, I mean, I know that that's one way that that the food strategy group last year got in contact with some people, but yeah, it's definitely useful.
Yeah, same thing happens here. We have a clubs day at the beginning of each semester, so great opportunity to talk to people. It's also an opportunity to talk to people that you wouldn't run into otherwise. So, for example, with this Dome Greenhouse project, on last year's clubs day, I had the opportunity to talk to the business club. I don't know if you guys have JDC, well, it would be JDC. Here it's JDC West, but it's the Jeux de Commerce, and so all the business students compete in these commerce games. So it was a great opportunity for us to connect with them and say, we need some people with financial management expertise to help us with this Dome Greenhouse project, because it's a $17,000 project, and I've never dealt with finances of this scale before. So you can make connections that you wouldn't expect. I'll just put it that way.
Cool. And Emma, did you have a thought there?
Yeah, I was just gonna say a similar thing to what Cam said, and that, yeah, like I've promoted other groups in the same way before, and I mean, it's harder to like get people as like engaged because it's usually just a quick like walk by, or like it's usually really busy. But if you can get a few people there, so you can have a number of people talking to different people coming by your booth, that can be really helpful. And yeah, just you'll get a good variety of people, and people who otherwise maybe wouldn't come to like say an event first off. So
yeah. Okay. I don't think we've heard from Tamara or Sarah Jane on an experience maybe that really struck you for a student engagement event. If there's something you'd like to add on. And if you're, go ahead.
I didn't actually experience this student engagement event, but I heard about it after the fact. And it just struck me as so neat that I actually got involved with the group that ran it. But basically what they did was they had a dinner, and they were raising awareness for poverty around the world and in our own communities and everything. And so basically the dinner was themed like, I think it was India, but I'm not quite sure. And so all the decorations were like you were in India and everything, and you walked in. But then as you walked in, you and your friends were given like a color as you walked in, and it determined your caste system. And so like people who got a certain color got to go and sit at this table, and they had like a full course meal, and like other people had to sit on the floor and got nothing but like a little cup of rice. And like it was just such an interesting idea behind it, and I actually got a lot of people talking about it to the point that I heard about it a week later, you know. And I don't know, like just kind of got me going.
Mm-hmm. Really, really interesting. Good. I themed it as like an experiential engagement event. Mm-hmm. So go ahead, Sarah. Jane. You got her presence.
Going to say, like, at St. Thomas, I haven't had to have anything to do with the school outside of relationships with, like, academic relationships with professors. Yeah, and I think that's sort of why it's tough for me to figure out how to get students involved, because I'm not really, I really have no idea. I've never actually belonged to a student club before or organization. So I think that's, well, I guess I did when I was at the University of Student Culture. So yeah, there's just a lot of like people putting up like threefold things that have printouts on them and at clubs days, and I just avoid the areas that those are at. So yeah, I haven't really had any great experiences, I guess, other than an Idle No More event, but that was not sanctioned by the school. So.
Wes, did you have a comment there?
No, I was just going to talk about how ASR projects are a great way to involve lots of students all at once in a really productive and meaningful way. So the ASR projects are just as valuable, if you want to put it in those terms, as a connection with multiple student societies. It's just different approaches, and different things work for different campuses, as we all know, and just use the resources that you have.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And just to, it's too bad Terry, and I'm sure she can give a better representation of this, but just an idea that that I thought was really neat from her campus is Capilano has a lot of arts and visual arts programming, and so on their events they sort of do a two-tiered event. So they have, in preparation for the event, is almost an event itself. So they get together, 40 or 50 students who are, or sorry, maybe that's an exaggeration, 20 students who are interested in art to create the banners and information ahead of time in celebration of the event. So then you have this captive audience already who are able to create the event and the decorations, but then sort of also become advocates for the work. So you know that they're going to show up, and if each of them invites 2 people, then the event's going to be a huge success. If they invite 5 people, it'll be bigger and bigger. But sort of that two-tiered process, you get that sort of experiential learning, and then you have the event, whether it be they're doing a concert for change, so a big vendor fair and music festival, but they did one last year focusing on environmental action, and it was like a 3-part event that included a big concert downtown afterwards. So just interesting to see the ways of building the student movement. Awesome. And Emma, did you have one that you hadn't mentioned, something that you've done on campus that was really meaningful?
Sure. No, I hadn't yet. Something that I've done, or something that I attended, or does it really matter?
Doesn't matter. Any
Okay.
experience, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm trying to just think through. I guess something that stood out. Yeah, I think it's related to what you were just saying about at Capilano. Was say so a few years ago, when I first started getting involved with Oxfam through MUN. I think it was just like that kind of preparing together for an event that was really engaging and made me feel like I really was a part of a group and had something to contribute, because there were things to be done, and I was and then there's also space for just friendly conversation in that space as well. So then you're able to just really make people feel comfortable and actually get to know the people they're working with, instead of just working on things individually. So yeah, I think it would be something like that. I think we were working, I can't even remember, working on something for World Food Day, and we had a potluck, and just getting to know people and then feeling really welcome there. I think that stands out for me.
Awesome. I thought now if anyone has questions, go for it. Go for it, Cam.
Yeah, early on, somebody mentioned Thoughtluck. I think it was Sarah, and I don't remember what school it was from, but it sounds like a really interesting name, and I'm just wondering if you can expand a bit on what that event looked like and how we might be able to replicate it at other institutions.
Sure. I'll ask Sarah Jane if Roxy and Hannah had mentioned the Thoughtluck that had happened.
Oh yeah, I think I was there.
Awesome. You will probably be better versed to talk about it.
Yeah, it was a potluck, but I mean, I didn't feel like the emphasis was on you had to bring food, but it was sort of like bring your ideas instead of bringing your food. And they had food there. And I believe it was like a local stew, and then we have a local brewery in the city, and so it was, they had made this big stew, they had a keg from the brewery, and it was held at the graduate student bar, so it was legal to have alcohol and stuff. And basically it was just everyone sitting down, eating, drinking, and talking about things that talking about things related to food and what they wanted to see on campus. It was like the first meeting. It was like the introduction of CFSG to the campuses. And so they had media there. And different people in, like, professors, faculty, and students from sort of all different groups and from both universities. And so they could just sort of take everybody's, like, harness everybody's ideas, see what people really wanted, not just what Hannah and Roxana thought the schools needed, but what does everyone else think they need. And so helping when some of those ideas went into play, people had a sense of ownership over them. You know, like, oh yeah, I came up with that idea, and you know, now they're doing it. Now I want to be involved in that.
Awesome. If you don't mind, I think I'm going to steal that idea and use it at UNBC.
Oh yeah, I think that's like a Creative Commons thing.
Yeah, solid. Yeah, no, that sounds really cool. And also just mention that I think it's really important to provide spaces for people to have those conversations, because when we're engaging students, we don't necessarily need to be the people that talk with those students and help them work through a project. If you provide an event or something like a farmer's market where people can run into each other and chat about something and develop an idea themselves, then you had no direct involvement in the project, but you gave them the opportunity to talk to each other. So when we were talking about farmers markets earlier and talking about how you can have special events there, that can be effective, but at our farmers market we found that the organizing committee ended up putting too much effort into events that weren't well attended, and the primary purpose of a farmers market is to put vendors and customers in the same room. And then you end up with people having all these really interesting conversations and going on their own tangents. And I think that that is something that we can't try to control. You just have to let it happen organically. But it can be way more effective than trying to schedule meetings and have these structured processes.
Yeah, great comments there. Awesome. I was wondering if anyone has any other questions, again, go for it. But also opening up the floor to you guys to speak a little bit about some of the events and ideas that you were thinking for this upcoming year, or challenges you think might come up.
You say challenges or events?
Events, like events that you would like to have, and when thinking about those events, if there's certain things that you think barriers that are in the way or resources you might need.
You got this, Mace.
All right, thank you. And yeah, definitely doing the Thought Luck idea. It ended up being like so beautiful, and I mean, really, it's exactly. It was just like you could even take a large meeting you're intending to have and just turn it into that. So it's a lot more tasty and fun, and constructive. So definitely doing the Thought Luck. And I don't really see too many barriers to that. Also doing farm visits. Definitely want to learn about more about those. I haven't done one myself yet, so I'm really excited. Looking forward to my farm visit coming up, and I want to learn more about how I can do that again with other students. And I don't think there's too many barriers to that either. It seems like a really simple process once you make a connection with the producers or a network such as the farmers market. Currently planning a pickling and picketing idea, and it just seems to be the challenge that is involving community members to run those different workshops. One on picketing, being the union for the TAs, keeping 4600 to lead the picketing workshop, and then someone from Just Food to lead a pickling workshop, just syncing everybody up, and then getting, this is the other logistical problem, is getting a setting that you can do. If you need a kitchen, you need to boil water to do pickling, so that's a challenge I didn't know about when I came up with the idea for the event. I learned about that as I went, and so that was a barrier I dealt with. Yeah, that's all for now.
Great. Ethan, did you have a couple of thoughts there?
I was just going to say, initially, Emma and I had thought that it would be a great idea to have a lecture, a couple of presenters come in and talk about different issues related to food, and we had thought to have this at the Graduate Student Union's bar, but then we've been presented, and one of our challenges with that was making sure that first-year students would be allowed to come, where they wouldn't have been of age, and I think that actually would have become a huge barrier. So then luckily we were presented with this, the knowledge of the sustainability committee on campus starting a sustainability lecture series, and we've been in communication with people from that committee, and the chair has allowed us to use the first of those sustainability lectures on food. So, which is really great because we're applying for funding, and I'm sure we'll have funding from the sustainability committee as well. So we're able to make the event 10 times better and twice the publicity for that. So I guess a big challenge that we've had last semester, I helped in the planning of an event, and it seemed like one of the biggest issues was getting people to come out. And I know that's always the same thing, but I'm wondering if there's anybody has any ideas for any really unconventional ways to bring people out to events.
Pay them, apparently.
What was that, Wes?
I said pay them. No. Works with a consistent employee, though. People always like to do the cheap thing and they offer pizza, and that actually does seem to work. And in that case, it would be a total contradiction of how to mobilize people. So integrating food into the event always helps.
Yeah.
I think you definitely hit it as well. Making it in a space that's accessible, where people passing by can feel welcome and invited, and making it somewhere where people are passing by, or might be anyway.
I was also going to add that even having it, if you can swing it with your campus, having it on the street. I don't know whether you guys have like lots of roads going through campus, but sometimes things like street parties in places that people aren't normally allowed to go, but people are sort of around all the time anyway, that can be sort of a draw. You know, like people are partying in the middle of the street, you know what, okay, I'll stop, I'll do this, you know.
I also find that if you can get people to commit to going to the event with other people, then they're much more likely to come. Because if you're asking one individual person, hey, come to this event, then they may or may not. But if they have made a promise to a friend of theirs that they'll meet them at a certain time to walk there or whatever, then they are typically more accountable. So if there is a way that you can get people to buddy up when they sign up or something like that, I think that that'll ensure higher turnout for events.
That brings up a really great point too, Cam. At Capilano, we met with a bunch of really excited professors, and like overly excited with so many students we didn't really know our projects per se to take on, you know, coordinate all of those for its first year. But for TRA's Concert for Change vendor fair event, we've got the English professor. They have to do a newspaper summary, and so we're getting the 36 students in her class to go out and do an interview with someone at the vendor fair. So you've already got a captive audience, and then they'll do a write-up, or they have an English second language program, and so a couple of students from that program are also going out to learn Canadian culture and write a little blurb about that. So you already have, you know, 50, 60 people who have to go for class. Good idea, buddying up.
Yeah, there have actually been a couple situations at UNBC where a student can convince their prof to bring their entire class to an event that's happening at the same time. So there was a discussion group happening at the farmers market about the inland temperate rainforest near Prince George, and my friend Mike, who is now the sustainability rep on the Student Society, convinced his forestry professor to cancel class that day and bring the entire class to this discussion group at the farmers market. So class doesn't have to be a barrier. Sometimes you can work with it, as long as you contact the prof with enough advance notice and it is relevant and everything.
Yeah, it's true. We did the same thing at X. I was in an advanced Indigenous Studies class, and I was also working on Idle No More, and we were having a big Maui for Idle No More to try and like raise awareness for it. And anyways, I got my prof to cancel class and made it like the class going to the Manawayomi instead and as a replacement, and worked out really well, and then got a great turnout for it.
Yeah, and then the next step is to get the prof to get the students to write a small report about it or something like that. Or even we have an annual event at UNBC called Green Day, which is like a celebration of sustainability. And one of the professors for an environmental class got his class to go and tour all the different booths and see some events and stuff like that, and then write their comments about it as an assignment that was worth some marks for the class. So the organizers of the event got some meaningful feedback from the students, and the students had a reason to go and get involved in all the activities happening that day.
Awesome. All right. Any other questions there, or can we find out about some more activities going on planned for the fall? Good to move on?
Move on.
Awesome. Okay, Ariel, did you have your hand up for possible event?
Yeah, sure. We have a bunch of stuff sort of on the go at the moment, mostly because we've been working in collaboration with a bunch of other related student groups on campus, and so we've been trying to find ways to either piggyback off events that are already happening in the fall, or where they're not happening, to try to get them to share resources as much as possible to collaborate on projects. So, for instance, right now we're looking at the Loaded Ladle, which is the alternative food service provider on the Dal campus, is starting a CSA in the fall. And so they were kind of disappointed when we spoke to them that they didn't manage to get more students to sign up for it this time around. So we were thinking that in conjunction with their first pickup day, we'll help them organize a launch party. And as soon as we talked to the Loaded Ladle about that, then some other student groups were interested in getting involved with it, and now it's looking like it's going to be this massive sort of collaborative endeavor that's going to happen like right at the very beginning of September. So the CSA launch party is going to happen possibly in the campus garden, and will also be an opportunity for us to advertise the farmers market that's going to be launched like 3 weeks later. And so then, yeah, then there's going to be some sort of launch for the Dal Farmers Market. We're also looking at the possibility of organizing some sort of field trip to the farm where the CSA produce is coming from, and doing that in conjunction with Dal's Green Week, which is at the end of September. And so we're looking at trying to secure funding for that, partially through the Loaded Ladle and partially through the Student Union. And then as soon as we started talking to some other groups about doing that idea, they wanted to piggyback off that idea. And so now we're looking at possibly next year trying to organize like either a monthly or an every 2-month trip to a different sort of producer venue. So the Beekeeping Society is interested in maybe going to see a bee farm and organizing a trip around that. So we're looking at a whole bunch of options related to those ideas and seeing if each society can sort of spearhead its own trip in order to spread out the burden of funding that. We're also talking, because Engineers Without Borders is trying to put on an event to springboard their Fair Trade Campus initiative, because they want DAL to become Fair Trade certified. And they were looking at doing an event either for Orientation Week or Green Week. And so we're seeing about maybe working with them to expand the parameters of that. And we talked to the DAL Student Union Sustainability Office about maybe doing fair trade and beyond seminar, so that we could talk about what exactly does fair trade mean and what are its limitations and what else can we be doing. So those are some of the things that we have on the go. And we'll see, I guess, what pans out. But those are, we've been generating a lot of ideas out of the meetings we've been having with various student groups.
Awesome. And that's amazing to see all of the cross collaboration. Do you see the CFSG playing a, is it the individual CFSG coordinators who are helping with these events, or are you looking to connect other individuals and let them run on their own? How is the organizing in terms of actual time and human capacity resources looking?
So far what's been happening, and we're just sort of at the beginning stages, one of the early bits of feedback that we got both from our predecessor in the CFSG at DAL and from other student groups is that there's a risk of the CFSG being redundant in the wake of all the other food interest groups that already exist at DAL, but that one of the disadvantages of DAL being such a big school is that a lot of the student groups don't often know what initiatives the others are doing. And so the role that we've basically been finding ourselves in over the summer has been to be a kind of facilitator of bringing different student organizations together in the same room. And because a lot of these groups are already kind of dividing themselves between a bunch of their own projects, they don't necessarily have enough time to commit to like seeing what all of the other groups are doing at any given time and collaborating with them. So we're finding opportunities in our various encounters with the different student groups to sort of find opportunities like, oh, well, you're doing this, someone else is doing something very similar. Why don't we sit down and talk about how we can flesh this idea out and share resources?
Great.
So not so much taking on our own projects as using the capacity that already exists.
Sounds great. Well, I hope there can be lots of photo sharing and updates throughout the semester.
Yeah.
Cool. So just a time check. So we've got about 15 minutes left here. I know Emma had to hop out early. Does anyone else have something that they're working on that they'd like to share a bit more? Tamara, I know you started to speak about working with residences, but if you want to expand on that.
Yeah, sure. So we've been trying to come up with something to do in residences because our meal hall is predominantly for first and second year students. A lot of third and fourth year students either live off campus or in apartments on campus that have their own kitchens. So when we're dealing with Sodexo, like there are like the different cafes and everything, but mainly our one meal hall that we have is directed towards first and second year students. So we wanted to do something to get them engaged with Sodexo at the actual meal hall, and hopefully get them interested in it at the very beginning. And so to do that, I've been trying to think of a project that could be handed over to the RAs for them to do it either as a floor or as a house. And something that was done last year was that during the first few weeks of classes going on, there was a strong push for RAs to have nurses come in and talk about health and sexual health, and like that was a huge hit, and like everybody loved it, and they were hilarious and great and really informative. And so I thought it'd be neat if we could carry on that kind of like health momentum that they really push the first month into the second month, and be like, okay, well, now that we've talked about like health and sexual health and all of that stuff and what's available on campus as far as like medical services, maybe now it's time to talk about what's available on campus for food services and how to eat properly while you're on campus, and just kind of carry on that flow that seems to be going on each year. So to do that, I thought that it would be interesting to kind of try and approach it from the nutrition side, and we have a very good nutrition department on our campus. So see if maybe we could get a couple nutrition professors to come in and do it, or even if they'd have like third or fourth year students who might be willing to come in and share some of their knowledge surrounding nutrition and portion sizes and like the benefits of eating local and all of that stuff, and then Sodexo could come in and speak about what they're doing to try and provide the best food possible, and then like just run from there. And yeah, so that's my major student engagement piece that I'm currently working on.
That sounds really exciting. And great to see the connection with the sort of overall health. And if you have a good thing going, just keeping the momentum going and sort of that programming level.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so now it's kind of trying to get not only the people on board, but also to get them to realize the time commitment that goes along with it, and to see if like we want to do it by floor, like they do with the nursing one, or if you want to do it by house. Oh, so or maybe like by sex, or like which way they'd want to go with it, so that maybe it would be more feasible if we're getting students to jump in and do these presentations and all of that stuff. But those are just kinks that need to be worked out.
Mm. Great to know. Capture that audience. Awesome. Is there anyone else who's got a project plan? I think we've got done most of these. Yeah, Wes, go for it.
I just had a question before we wrap up. And there's an existing group called Cinema Politica. They just do politically charged screenings, screen politically charged movies on a regular basis, and so we definitely thought they could show a movie related to food issues. And I was just wondering if you guys could suggest a good food documentary if you know of one. I mean, I already have Food Inc., Food Matters, and Super Size Me, but any other food documentaries that you guys have watched, I'd appreciate a suggestion. Something that really
we showed a documentary here last year called Fresh. It was all about innovative approaches to agriculture for the most part. It does the regular, our food system is broken, here's a cool project that's doing it better. So look up Fresh, it's a good one.
Cool, thanks.
I'll put a chat in here too of some resources we've got.
Great.
And there's a like 10-minute TED Talk by this guy, Rodney. His last name's escaping me right now. But he he calls it guerrilla or gangsta gardening. And he's a real cool dude who will swear and get people pretty stoked. So I can pass on it's a small little thing too.
Thank you so much. Anybody else with any suggestions?
Awesome.
I just posted Vegucated there. That's good. Or yeah, I suppose you saw it.
There we go. Awesome. I'll post this one too. Awesome. Well, I guess any other closing thoughts or ideas or some resources? Something I was thinking too is just in terms of event planning. I know sounds like you guys are connecting with the right people, but for sort of larger scale events, there's different policies and loopholes and some planning procedures that need to be done. So just if anyone comes across one that they feel is really useful in terms of like checklists of planning, if we could share those resources, or if there's anything that you guys feel like you might need, other resources. Movies are a good one. Yeah, go for it, Cam.
Sometimes I find it hard to get people to come out to a movie screening because it does take an hour or two out of their day. But if you want to have a small discussion group and show some TED Talks and other short clips for really good discussion points, I find that that's a good way that people can come for 20 minutes, see a TED Talk, chat for a little bit, and then leave. And if you want it to be a long event, you can show a series of TED Talks and just have discussion in between. And it's a really open format for people to jump in and out when they want.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. All right. Thanks, guys, so much. I feel like did it feel like some good ideas got generated through this discussion? Feeling definitely.
Can I ask a really quick question?
For sure.
You said something earlier about like using the cafeteria as a living laboratory. What does that mean?
Yeah, I don't know if I don't think it's a technical term, but the idea of making it sort of through applied student research, sharing, getting the students who have done research out there, explaining what they've been doing, getting it, highlighting the changes that are being made through by working with your food service providers, whether that be a special menu item, whether that be an event around it. I know CFX has the supplier event where the different suppliers come in and they have taste testings. I guess it's sort of a small feedback loop showing how students can be involved in the processes of their food service. And everything as simple as we've had at McGill, we had a really flexible chef, but you know, we learned about a really cool producer. I did a course where we went out and visited a farm every week, and there's this one farm that made amazing cheese, and I knew Cheese Week was coming up, and so I spoke to our chef, and he allowed us to have these cheeses as long as I did a taste test. And so just showing the, getting the students out, involved, active in their decision making through the cafeteria. So I guess that's the term, might not be exactly right, but just a place where showing how things are dynamic on campus and using the cafeteria as a platform to do that sort of experiential learning.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. All right. Well, thank you guys all so much for taking the time on, I think, a seemingly hot day for everyone. And I will pass along the notes that have been taken and their recording at the end of the day. And thanks everyone for keeping the posting and keeping us all in the loop through your circles. It's great to get updates. Yeah, I look forward to seeing you all on Monday afternoon.
Thanks, Sarah.
Thanks, Sarah.
All right.
Thanks a lot. Nice seeing you guys.
Yeah, nice to see you. Have a great weekend, everyone.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
See you guys.